Meet Vane Matthew. Vane Matthew is pursuing happiness. He has big ambitions, big goals, and big plans. What he doesn't know, on the other hand, is that there is humble Matthew, who already is happy despite not having anything. He is homeless, unemployed, single, childless, and he is a brokey, and yet he is happy. How is that possible? So when I was in middle school, I was always unhappy. I was that quiet kid sitting alone in the corner, and I hated myself and I hated life. That was until one day I basically asked this girl I had a crush on to hang out more, and she did not say ew. And all of a sudden, I felt happy. I loved myself. And this was the first time in my life that I genuinely experienced like happiness and self-love and all that kind of stuff. But then I confessed my feelings to her, and she told me she did not feel the same, and that later other girls would also reject me and not feel the same. And then I started this channel, and I got a lot of criticism that I am not as good looking as I thought I was, that I am not attractive, that I look and sound like a nerd, and that girls will never like me and I should accept the black pill and that kind of stuff. And so I was like, I need to become attractive so that I can feel that happiness again. Because that first time when I felt happiness, like in middle school, it was when I got convinced that I was attractive, and that happiness lasted until I realized that I am not actually that attractive, and that made me miserable again. And so I felt the need now to become attractive so that I can reclaim that happiness. And so I received comments on my channel that gave me advice on how I can become more attractive, and a lot of them suggested me going to the gym. The problem was just that I was already going to the gym, and so since I was already going to the gym and building muscle and apparently still did not look attractive, that meant that going to the gym would not work, and that it does not work. And I also received a lot of flack for my neck. A lot of comments told me I have like a skinny neck and I need to get a bigger, more muscular neck. And so I started doing a bunch of upper body exercises, and I started dry scooping protein powder and creatine like a man. And I was doing all of that, but I thought, like, in the back of my mind that what if I will never become good enough? What if I am forever doomed to look like an unattractive autistic nerd because of horrible genetics that I cannot do anything about? And because of that, I started thinking that in order for me to feel happiness ever again in my life, I need to stop obsessing over trying to be as attractive as possible. And so I tried to find a different source of happiness. The problem was just that I couldn't. I tried picking up different hobbies, but truly, the only time I managed to feel happiness in my life was whenever I thought I was attractive to the opposite gender. And so I started like envisioning within myself that in 10 years I would probably start having those thoughts, that I would like write a goodbye letter to my parents and be like, I'm sorry that I failed you, mom and dad, but really I am someone who could only feel happiness when I thought I was attractive, and now that I realized I can never become attractive, my life is meaningless, I'm sorry. And it was gonna be super dark. But then I went to the US, and I spent 10 weeks there, and when I first came there, I finally managed to feel happy, without feeling the need to be attractive. Guess what my new source of happiness was? Walking, bathing in the sun. It was the most simple things imaginable. And my addictions were all gone. I did not need to use my phone. I got my biggest nofap streak ever, which was like 2 weeks. And then it went downhill. I started obsessing over being attractive again. I started once again obsessing over women and sex and that kind of stuff. I relapsed on gooning and doom scrolling. And there were fun things there that I got to do, but nothing could make me happy. And that's when I came to a realization. The fact that the only thing that made me happy was being attractive to the opposite gender. That was not normal. That was a mental illness. Because it's not that I couldn't find happiness elsewhere. Happiness elsewhere was everywhere. It's just that I did not allow myself to be happy. And this was a way for me to basically stand up for my younger self who felt that special happiness and special self-love for the first time in his life, only for the world to brutally take that happiness away from him by telling him that obsessing over women and being attractive makes you a beta simp, and that pride is a sin, true happiness comes from Jesus Christ, and blah blah blah. And the reason why I'm sharing this today is because you hear over and over again people saying, if I only accomplish this, I will finally be happy. And like, imagine this cowboy that is like passionate about his job, and he speaks with like a cowboy accent. He's like, I only feel true happiness when I'm doing my job. I'm committed to my job. When I put my hands down in the work, this is the only time I feel alive. This is the only time I feel happiness. No, bro, that is not normal. That is a mental illness. Because a healthy person can find happiness from anything. They can find happiness from simply breathing. If breathing can't make you happy, then you have a mental illness. If breathing cannot make you happy, you have possible childhood trauma, and that possible childhood trauma prevents you from feeling happiness from, for example, breathing. My own childhood trauma was that my first time experiencing happiness was brutally taken away from me, and so I needed to protect and stand up for my younger self by only allowing myself to feel happiness from the same source as the source that gave me my first time happiness in my life. And that source was, of course, being convinced that I'm attractive to the opposite gender. And so people ask, how do I find happiness? How can I become happy? You don't find happiness. You either allow yourself or don't allow yourself to feel happy from any possible source. I'm gonna repeat. If you cannot feel happy from breathing, you have possible childhood trauma.